Good morning, family. I just wanted to share a short devo from Proverbs Chapter 7. It says, "My son, keep my words and treasure my commands within you." It speaks of us valuing God's word. He commands us to value them, to store them in our hearts. He says, "Keep my commands and live, and my law is the apple of your eye." So this speaks of us protecting God's word and valuing it. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. So this binding them on our fingers speaks of the outward, meaning everything I put my hand to them to consider God. Writing them on the tablet of my heart speaks of the inward, obeying them from the heart. Say to wisdom, "You are my sister." And so when it says, "Say to wisdom, you are my sister," this is wisdom personified. It says, "And call understanding your nearest kin." So sister and kin is having to do with our relationship with wisdom and understanding. We're to have a relationship with wisdom and understanding, that they may keep you from the immoral woman. Some people are strangers to wisdom and understanding. Some people reject wisdom and understanding because sometimes when we have a relationship with wisdom or understanding, it keeps us from things that we might want to do. It says that they may keep you from the immoral woman. So God's word, wisdom and understanding protects us, keeps us from things that might have an appearance of something good or pleasure, but it's going to cost us in the end. So we're going to be careful. And so as we even read this, you might say to yourself, "I don't have a problem with adultery. I don't have a problem with infidelity." Well, this is not just applicable to that, but any kind of compromise, any kind of thing that's going to cause us to sin. It says, "From the seductress who flatters with her words. For at the window of my house I looked through my lattice, and I saw among the simple, and I perceived among the youths a young man devoid of understanding." And so we see here that this man, who we see previously in these verses 4 and 5, that if we have a relationship with wisdom and understanding, that they keep us from being at the wrong place at the wrong time, keeps us from immoral women or compromise. But this man was devoid of understanding. So he passed along the street in verse 8, near the corner, and took the path to her house in the twilight and the evening and the black and dark night. This guy was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He didn't have a relationship with wisdom and understanding. So he was going into the perfect storm of destruction. And so, verse 10, "And there a woman met him with an attire of a harlot and a crafty heart. This woman was dressed to kill with the heart of a murderer. So she was loud and rebellious. Her feet would not stay at home. At times she was outside, at times in the open square, lurking at every corner. She was looking for her prey." And that's what it says about the devil regarding us, that the devil's walking around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. It says, "So she caught him and kissed him with an impudent face, and she said to him, 'I have peace offerings with me today. I have paid my vows.'" Sounds pretty religious, right? Sounds good. But the problem is this woman was trying to lure him into adultery. And that's the problem with our, anything, whether it's compromise and in business and relationships and, whatever it is. Sometimes it has this appearance that looks good, but it's a facade, it's a trap. "So I came out to meet you diligently to seek your face, and I have found you. I've spread my bed with tapestry, colored coverings of Egyptian linen. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon." And so sometimes sin or compromise has an appearance of profit, of comfort, like this Egyptian linen, perfumed bed, myrrh, aloes, cinnamon. It says in verse 18, "Come, let us take our fill of love till morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey." Excuse me. And so what she's telling him is that there's nothing to fear. It's high reward, low risk. And so that's what sin sometimes tells us, is that, there's not much to risk. But we got to be careful. Verse 20, it says, he has taken a bag of money with him, and he won't come home, and he will come home at the appointed day. Another translation said a full moon, or in about a month. It says, with her enticing speech, she caused him to yield. So she was very persuasive in her speech. With her flattering tongue, she seduced him. She stroked his ego. Immediately he went after her as an ox goes to the slaughter, or a fool to the correction of stocks. Verse 23, till an arrow struck his liver, as a bird hastens to the snare, he did not know it would cost his life. And so this is the problem here. This bird hastens to the snare. The reason why a bird goes to the trap is because he doesn't know that it's there. And the problem with the trap is that we don't know until we're caught in it. And so the problem with this man is that he was complacent. He had a feeling of safety and security, not knowing that he was in danger. He was with this woman who called herself religious, said, hey, I made my vows and my offerings. She said, hey, my husband's gone. There's nothing to worry about. And that's what sin tells us a lot of times, is there's nothing to worry about, but we must count the cost. Now, therefore, listen to me, my children. Pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways. So we're to choose wisely. Do not stray into her paths, for she has cast down many wounded, and all who were slain by her were strong men. And so these weren't weak, feeble men. These were strong men. And so if strong men are slain by her, you know how much us regular men. There's a cross-reference here in Nehemiah 13, verse 26. Speaks of King Solomon, king of Israel, which was the wisest and richest king that ever lived. It said, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there was no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, pagan women caused even him to sin. And so we got to be careful. We got to guard our hearts. We got to guard our minds. We got to be intentional that we're not going to compromise, because that's the problem with compromise. It says, hey, just a little, and you're going to get a great reward. But the problem is that we're practicing to fall, because a lot of times there isn't a consequence for a little bit of compromise. But if we keep compromising, it's going to lead to, we're going to get knee deep or waist deep into sin, and we're going to wonder how we got here. And the way we did is through small compromises. And it's the same thing, the same is true in contrast of walking with God. It's like, how do we walk with God? It's not overnight, but what it is small acts of obedience, which lead to us walking with God. And so that's where we all want to be, and that's what we got to do, is practice doing right even in the small things. It says in verse 27, her house is the way to hell, descending to the chambers of death. And so, I just wanted to share that with you guys. And so it's applicable to all of us, no matter where we're at, whether it has to do with relationships or business relationships, relationships with our family members, our loved ones. It's applicable to many situations if we would just examine our heart and see where we're complacent, see where we're compromising, see where, we're not counting the cost for certain things, and see how we can change our perspective and the direction we're headed.